Very little information from police after gunfire rings out inside a downtown movie theater. New today, the basic questions they refuse to answer. State lawmakers set to address juvenile crime tomorrow. The strong push from some to get something done, and why the chance for solutions remains unclear. Then, 3 attempted car thefts in Reisterstown over the weekend.
It means that I don't have a holiday coming.
Our team makes this victim's voice heard as police investigate if they're all connected.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
We're following 3 big stories tonight. First, Baltimore police not explaining what happened when shots were fired in a movie theater this weekend. Fox 45 News presses them for answers.
Another juvenile crime hearing in Annapolis. Could the calls for reform from residents, police, and prosecutors lead to a real change?
And who will be Maryland's next senator? A new poll gives us a look at who may be leading in the race right now. Thank you for joining us. I'm Carjacking.
And I'm Mary Bubala. We begin with the shots fired inside Harbor East Cinemas as police remain pretty tight-lipped tonight.
Multiple calls, 645 President Street. They heard shots in theater number 3. Multiple calls coming in.
That dispatch audio from BPD Central District around 10 o'clock Saturday night, revealing a slew of 911 calls after gunshots were heard inside Harbor East Cinemas. But despite the threat in a very public place, few details are being shared. Fox 45 Amy Simpson live as we continue to demand answers tonight. Amy?
Yes, Mary, almost 48 hours later and no new details from Baltimore police about what exactly happened inside of Harbor East Cinemas on Saturday night. We do know that this incident drew a heavy police presence to the movie theater there in the heart of Harbor East. And so far, police only telling us they responded to investigate shots fired inside the movie theater, saying there were no injuries and have no suspect information. But dispatch audio also reveals at least one officer said they were responding to the scene with a rifle. And outside of the theater Saturday night, Fox 45 spoke to a woman who said she was inside Harbor East Cinemas seeing the Beyonce movie. And here's how she described the aftermath.
The movie had just ended and the lights came up and security just ran in and said, "There's been a shooting, everyone get out." And we were like, what's going on? What's happening? And so we just started shuffling out as best as we could. And in the lobby, there was security everywhere and kind of just chaos.
And Amy, with transparency concerns, what questions are not being answered by police today?
So, Mary, as we do almost every day, we ask some pretty basic, straightforward questions to BPD today, asking things like how many shots were fired, how many suspects are you looking for, and will you be releasing any surveillance images? But none of those questions were answered. The department just telling us no new investigative updates today, and when they do have new information to provide, they'll be putting out a media advisory. Live in the newsroom, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. An arrest is made in a deadly Baltimore shooting. 18-year-old Marcus Harris was taken into custody after being accused of killing a man in West Baltimore on Harlem Avenue. He's facing multiple charges, including first-degree murder.
Well, this year, 250 people have been killed in Baltimore. 597 have survived being shot. Both of those numbers are down from last year, but at the same time, the city has seen an increase in car thefts and violent youth crime.
Tomorrow, state leaders will meet for a 3rd time to work out a plan addressing juvenile crime in Maryland. Fox 45 News continues to hear from Marylanders who say youth violence makes it hard to feel safe in their communities.
Some of those people who I grew up with who are no longer here, if they knew that this was the condition of our community, they would turn over in their graves.
These kids don't have consequences, and that's what makes me very angry. And I am furious, and I'm going after these. I want to prosecute. I want to see some type of retribution.
As victims demand changes to laws, we're looking ahead to that hearing tomorrow. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost reports.
Members of a House committee will meet in Annapolis tomorrow for the 3rd hearing to address juvenile crime. With just over a month before the next session begins, the pressure continues to build for lawmakers to find a solution to this problem impacting communities across the state. This fall, members of a House committee have met twice.
If a crime clearly has occurred, we should allow our officers to take action. And it's frustrating to the community that we cannot.
They see no reason to stop committing crimes because we are giving them no reason not to.
To talk about more and more young people finding themselves either suspects or victims of violence. The issue catapulting in the center of the debate earlier this year after a new law preventing kids 13 and younger from facing nonviolent misdemeanor charges took effect. Another law requires an attorney to be present during questioning of juveniles by law enforcement. Soon, prosecutors from around the state started speaking up and pushing lawmakers to make change.
A revolving door, the same juvenile offenders over and over again.
You can protect the child and also protect society. If we deter that communication, we inhibit our ability to address crime.
If we don't do something to hold these young people accountable, they will continue to run and almost have lawlessness in our cities. And we can't have that.
House Judiciary Committee Chairman Luke Clippinger, a Democrat from Baltimore City, previously telling Fox 45 News he was interested in looking at probation as an area for potential change.
Previous law said that they could be on probation until they're 21. The current law depends on whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony. It basically is up to a year for a misdemeanor and up to 2 years for a felony. I think we might take another look at those.
But so far, no concrete plans from Democratic lawmakers to address the concerns, the same lawmakers who control both chambers in the State House. Meanwhile, Delegate Robin Grammer, a Republican from Baltimore County, sits on the committee. He's been pushing for bigger changes and says the 2 previous committee hearings have been beneficial, but it's time to see action.
People have to, frankly, stop playing so close to the chest and start having real discussions about this issue.
Recent polling from the Gonzalez Research shows voters are looking for a change when it comes to juvenile justice laws.
What we found statewide, 59% of Marylanders say we need a strict approach. 35% said a more moderate approach.
It's just not clear if or how lawmakers in Annapolis will decide to tackle the problem. The hearing is scheduled to begin 1 o'clock Tuesday afternoon in Annapolis. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Despite calls for change, some Democratic lawmakers in Annapolis are continuing to stand by recent juvenile crime reform. Senator Will Smith says the laws haven't been in place long enough to see their effectiveness. Governor Moore is also preaching patience about the Department of Juvenile Services, calling Secretary Vincent Schiraldi a reformer.
We're very clear on the challenges that DJS has had and that have been long-standing. We're clear that when we came into office, we walked into a DJS that was understaffed and underfunded. And it's the reason why I appointed a true reformer.
Well, Vincent Schiraldi defended the state's juvenile crime laws in an interview with Fox 45 News this spring. He says juveniles shouldn't be exposed to the adult prison system until they turn 25.
The systems we have now, when you put these young people in adult systems, they really don't do well. Kids that are really young are much more of a social service problem than they are a criminal juvenile justice problem. And when you have a 12-year-old or an 11-year-old in a detention facility with a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds, all you're doing is teaching that kid how to become a worse criminal.
Well, some former lawmakers and police leaders criticize Schiraldi, saying those policies will make Maryland less safe. That brings us to our question of the day. Are lawmakers taking the juvenile crime crisis seriously? We just opened the poll. To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com.
Making headlines in Harford County, a mother is facing charges for her 3-year-old's death. Yesterday, around 5:30, an off-duty sheriff's deputy was driving along North Main Street in Bel Air when they saw Gloria Hughes and her son in distress. Police say 3-year-old Jason Garcia was suffering from cardiac arrest. He was rushed to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. Police are still investigating. Hughes is charged with homicide.
Well, the race for Maryland's open Senate seat is heating up over the weekend.
Following a fiery debate between the top 2 candidates on Sunday, new polling shows Representative David Trone pulling ahead of Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has more on these new numbers. Rebecca?
Well, political analyst John Dede says primary elections often come down to name recognition, and it looks like the amount of money that David Trone is spending on TV ads and mailings, things like that, is starting to pay off. According to a recent poll commissioned by the Trone campaign through Hickman Analytics, which surveyed 1,000 Democratic voters, 86% of those surveyed said that they had heard of the name David Trone, while only 73% recognized Angela Also Brooks. The poll also found 55% of voters have a favorable opinion of Trone compared to 49% for Also Brooks. And finally, if the election were held today, 41% said that they would vote for Trone, while 35% said they'd vote for Also Brooks. Today I spoke with Dede about these numbers. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I'm surprised by the results because Also Brooks has a lot of party people behind her. She has the strong party endorsements from a lot of people. But Trone has done the one thing. He has spent money to a point where he has name identification. Also, Brooks needs to do something, and her campaign needs to do something to better get her name out there than have a bunch of endorsements.
The candidates are vying to replace Senator Ben Cardin, who is retiring in early 2025. That primary is set to take place on May 14th. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. She ran from carjackers only for them to chase after her. Hearing the calls for change in Baltimore from one of the most recent victims.
Is Maryland heading toward a financial disaster? A taxpayer watchdog weighs in on some major expected cutbacks.
And we look ahead to the Ravens' next matchup, why their next game will have such a big impact on playoff football in Baltimore.
And after a wet and murky weekend around here, temperatures into the upper 50s today with some nice sunshine in the mix. However, already tracking some more active weather building off to the north and west of us. We'll have those details coming up in just a couple more minutes.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Here's a live look at M&T Bank Stadium. The Ravens are coming off a bye week this weekend and will be back at the bank this weekend to take on the Rams.
That's right. The Ravens are in a tight race for the division and home field advantage in the playoffs with some tough matchups ahead. Sports Unlimited Morgan Atzett has more on what comes next.
After getting an entire week off for their bye week, thanks to head coach John Harbaugh, the Ravens are now back to work. And because of being idle in week 13, the Ravens lost a little bit by not playing. They are no longer the top seed in the AFC. That won't matter come Sunday if the Ravens can beat the Rams post their bye. They still remain at the top of the AFC North at 9-3 with a 2-game lead thanks to Steelers and Browns losses Sunday. But there's still not a ton of separation, meaning the Ravens' final 5 games, they may need all of those to secure what they want, which is home field advantage for a Super Bowl run. Here's the Ravens schedule the rest of the way. Home with the Rams Sunday, then 2 weeks of primetime road games at the Jags and then at the 49ers Christmas night. Home with Miami. The regular season finale, week 18, home with Pittsburgh. The Ravens are one of the top teams in the AFC this season thanks to some huge performances in their quote-unquote first half and breakout roles this season. The usual suspects are doing their thing, like quarterback Lamar Jackson and inside linebacker Roquan Smith. Their biggest breakouts are on defense with some contract year players like Justin Madubuike and Patrick Queen playing out of their way of Baltimore with their price tags, most likely. And then their second-year player Kyle Hamilton. As a first-time starter, he's leading safety play for the Ravens and the entire league.
He's all over the field, and we put more on his plate every single week, and he makes the most of it. You know, he cleans his plate. You know, so we'll keep putting more on there. You know, and but I think he's kind of a reflection of the whole defense right now. They're hungry. They want to get better. They want more. They hate when they don't, make a play, any type of play. That's what you love about him. I think he's kind of, him and all the guys, they're just kind of in the same mold that way.
The Ravens got back to work today. They'll be on the practice field Wednesday. 3 of their 5 remaining opponents are division leaders, with the rest in wild card contention.
Well, you can watch the Ravens take on the LA Rams this Sunday at 1 o'clock right here on Fox 45. Coverage starts at 11 a.m.
All right, time to talk with Wyatt again on this Monday. We saw a little sunshine today, which was so nice.
Yeah,
we needed
welcome
it.
after that weekend, right? It was just, socked in with the fog for days on Monday.
It's crazy, right?
A little rough. But we're looking better today. And even tomorrow, I think kind of a carbon copy.
All right,
things change a little bit by Wednesday morning.
Okay,
so
fair enough,
we're
Wyatt.
watching that. There's always something, right, in December. Something on the radar. Take a look at the overall setup here. Again, it's a nice look at M&T Bank Stadium right now. Take a look at some temperatures across the area. You can see we're at 54 now in the city. Most spots above 50 degrees right now, with the exception of Westminster. So a pretty pleasant December afternoon for us out there. And I think we'll continue to see nice conditions holding up here as we kind of go into the next couple of hours. Temperatures now across the board, again, close to 50 in most spots. Still some 40s on the board, Chestertown, Westminster, Frederick. Some spots have cooled off a bit. Winter is out there, my friends. It may not be ever present in the immediate Baltimore area right now, but you can see the snow draped across the New England states here. So plenty of cold air bottled up just to the north of Maryland right now. And even here in our state, out on the western edge, we're already seeing, some wintry showers, and the setup is there for more significant winter weather into early Wednesday morning. Thus, a winter weather advisory has already popped for Garrett County and the Deep Creek Lake area. We'll see if that expands at least a bit eastward as we go forward into the week here. Well, I'll give you more details on that in a second. Right now, you can see the night is going to be chilly. Temperatures dropping from the 50s into the 40s, into the 30s. But then I think we'll bounce back pretty nicely tomorrow. A mostly cloudy scenario overnight tonight, but I think all the action you see here on the radar is just evaporating on its way down. Very dry air in place at the surface, so I think we'll stay dry, even though you'll see the clouds increase a little bit into the evening. Going forward in time here on Future Scan, this is our next weather maker, and you can see this is by Tuesday, 6 o'clock. So tomorrow, this time, basically, edging into western Maryland. And the interesting thing with this system will be it's kind of a weak clipper system, we call. It looks like this is probably going to be losing its moisture as it edges into the 95 corridor. So probably not much, but would not be surprised to see at least a few mixed showers first thing Wednesday morning, the Wednesday morning drive, especially areas west of the Baltimore area, as that cold air kind of comes in with that system and gets us just cold enough for those wintry type showers. Again, first thing Wednesday, and not a lot of precipitation, but just enough to maybe create a little traffic headache there first thing on Wednesday. After that, cold scenario midweek, we see temperatures bouncing back to the mid and upper 50s toward the late week and into the weekend. So it's really a tale of two weather scenarios here. You can see overnight Tuesday into Wednesday gets a little wintry around here. And then we see a milder surge coming in toward the late week, and really not a lot of precipitation here in the outlook other than those stray wintry mixed showers first thing Wednesday. Next chance for any real rain around here, probably holding off until Sunday. We'll head back your way.
Wyatt, thanks. Hundreds dead since the fighting resumed. The impact the war between Israel and Hamas is having on civilians in Gaza.
U.S. support for Ukraine could soon come to a halt. I'm Atra El-Nashar with why Congress can't agree on a path forward.
In the latest on the war in Israel, Palestinian health officials say hundreds of civilians have died since fighting resumed last week. Today, there are renewed calls for Palestinians to evacuate parts of southern Gaza, where the IDF is trying to fight Hamas. Palestinian leaders say they have nowhere to go due to the destruction in northern Gaza, and the majority of the territory's 2 million people already having evacuated to the southern part of the country. Almost 1.9 million people in Gaza have been displaced since the beginning of the war between Hamas and Israel. According to the United Nations Relief Agency, that is more than 80% of Gaza's total population. The agency also says 218 displaced people have died while staying at UN facilities, and more than 900 have been injured. Meantime, Israel is now also fending off attacks from Lebanon. The Israeli military says several IDF soldiers were injured in a missile attack near the border with Lebanon Sunday as fighting continues with Hezbollah. More than 100 people have been killed in Lebanon so far as Israel's war rages on. As the U.S. continues to support Israel, aid for Ukraine has been put on the back burner. Democrats and Republicans remain at odds about whether Ukraine aid should be conditional on new U.S. border policy, and talks on a compromise hit a snag over the weekend. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar reports from Capitol Hill.
We are out of money and nearly out of time.
The White House issuing those blunt words to congressional leadership Monday in yet another plea to approve more funds for Ukraine.
A vote against supporting Ukraine is a vote to improve Putin's strategic position. That's just an inescapable reality.
There is enough support in both parties to approve the aid, but Republicans have a condition.
If you want aid to Ukraine, we need to control our southern border. Reform asylum, reform parole is possible to do. Democrats don't want to do it. All Republicans want to do it.
Democrats back President Biden's proposal that includes additional asylum officers, immigration judges, and border agents, and argue what Republicans want would deny protection for vulnerable people without actually improving the border crisis. Making things even more complicated is the fact that Congress is under another tight deadline to fund the federal government by early next year. And the growing national debt, nearing $34 trillion, puts any new spending under the microscope. Outside groups, even some members of Congress, calling for a bipartisan fiscal commission to identify ways to pay down the debt. Billionaire hedge fund manager Ray Dalio among those urging policymakers to pay attention to the cost of high interest rates.
The longer term is that we are at a point in which we are borrowing money to pay debt service. And as that happens, and you want to keep spending at the same level, there is the need to get more and more into debt.
Lawmakers have to decide, and soon, if new spending, whether it be for Ukraine, the border, or other security priorities like Israel and Taiwan, is indeed worth the price now to avoid paying for a larger conflict down the road. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atrel Nishar reporting.
Is Maryland heading for a financial disaster? Taking a look at the spending plans putting so much pressure on local governments. A string of attempted car thefts has a Baltimore County community on edge tonight. The growing frustration over the surge in stolen vehicles. They put a gun to her head, then chased her down as she tried to drive to safety. A Baltimore woman sharing her harrowing escape in Roland Park after she was approached by carjackers.
It means that I don't have a holiday coming. They need to put some cameras up around here or something.
A Reisterstown man is one of the latest victims of an attempted car thief in Baltimore County.
Yeah, it is the latest in a massive wave of thefts impacting communities across the state.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson has details from Reisterstown, where police are investigating if a trio of Hyundais and Kias were targeted.
I came home Friday evening, parked my car, went in the house.
It's not the way he wanted to wake up over the weekend.
Saturday morning, like about 5 o'clock in the morning, police knocked on my door.
This Reisterstown man not showing his face or using his name.
Can't get a break.
But wanting to share his story.
Police say it's probably the kids, you know what I mean? They're the ones that's going around stealing cars.
Along Tarragon Road in Reisterstown, police confirming 2 attempted car thefts over the weekend. A third incident just around the corner on Franklin Road. This man's Kia, one of the cars targeted.
But it was a lot of glass over here. It's still glass over here.
His back window is gone, covered in a black trash bag. Shards of glass littering his back seat. The car's ignition also a mess.
But I was trying to get it, you know what I mean? Because if they get into the wires, I mean, they can probably hot shot it or something.
Then walking us over to see another car parked nearby.
That's a Kia. This is a Hyundai.
This red Hyundai, also with its back window covered in plastic.
See, they did the same thing to this. I didn't see this. But it's just like my wheel was, my steering wheel, theirs is the same way.
According to Baltimore County Police data, there have been at least 4,100 attempted and successful auto thefts so far in 2023, a 190% increase from the year before. This man, now a part of that statistic.
Just one thing after another, you know.
We asked what this kind of expense means this close to the holidays.
It means that I don't have a holiday coming.
Yet somehow, despite the damage, his ignition still starts.
I can start it, and I can get it where I gotta take it.
But instead of heading off to work today, he's headed to get the car fixed up, but with a warning for other vulnerable drivers.
Get to the club and the software that they're supposed to, you know, put on it.
In Reisterstown, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Many of the car thefts and carjackings across the state are being committed by young people. A Baltimore County woman tells Fox 45 News 2 teens carjacked her just steps from her home in Rosedale last week, leaving her, as you can see, with a black eye and a concussion. She says those responsible need to face consequences.
These kids don't have consequences, and that's what makes me very angry. And I am furious, and I'm going after these. I want to prosecute. I want to see some type of retribution.
And a Prince George's County mother shared a very similar story, saying a group of teens threatened her at gunpoint as she was walking from her car to her home at 2 a.m. She says the 16-year-old who held a gun to her face was charged with armed carjacking, but a judge sent that boy home.
I don't think if they understand the ripple effect of everything that they're doing. Like, you're not just stealing a car, you're stealing someone's safety, their sense of security.
And we're hearing yet another harrowing story from a Baltimore resident. A woman tells Fox 45 News would-be carjackers chased her in Roland Park when she tried to get away. Vincent Hill reports this incident has similarities to other recent cases.
This Baltimore woman, not wanting to show her face, reliving the horrifying moments of Saturday morning, just before 2 o'clock, when a car that was following her suddenly tried to make her a target.
They sped in front of my car and kind of angled it, and the passenger exited the car quickly, sprinted up to my driver's side, and pointed a gun at my head and said to exit the vehicle.
But she was determined not to become Baltimore's latest carjacking victim.
I put the car in reverse and reversed basically as fast as I possibly could. It was on Park Lane.
She was able to get away from the armed suspect, but it wasn't over yet.
He said the suspect came back. State Chief passing Lyndhurst.
The suspect tried to box her in again.
I drove around them and kind of nicked their car a little bit.
The damage visible on her car. She gave police this suspect description.
And they were kind of tall, very thin. They looked to be maybe about 19. They were wearing a ski mask, but there were still kind of large patches around their eyes and mouth.
And this vehicle description.
It was a white BMW sedan.
Just a few hours later at this Starbucks in Towson around 7:30.
We had a carjacking at the Starbucks, 6225 Charles Street.
Another woman face-to-face with an armed suspect. His description?
Vehicle was taken by a black male, 6 feet, displayed a black weapon. I don't type.
A similar suspect description and a similar suspect vehicle description.
He arrived in a white BMW. There was a black female in the rear seat.
A white BMW. He got away in the victim's SUV, and the female in the white BMW sped off towards Baltimore City. Last week at Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital, about 3 miles away.
Harford Carjacking, 1708 West Rogers, 1708 West Rogers on the parking lot.
2 employees carjacked within 24 hours. The suspect description.
Number 1, adult male and female, clothing description unknown. They had a handgun.
Baltimore police releasing this image of the male suspect. We showed that picture to the victim of the attempted carjacking.
Does that look similar to what you're talking about?
I mean, just the height and the build look similar.
This would-be victim calling herself lucky.
In our family, my husband's uncle was killed many years ago through an armed robbery. So I'm very aware of the potential for things to go south, and I'm definitely very lucky that I was able to get away.
In Baltimore, Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Baltimore City has seen nearly 11,000 carjackings and car thefts this year. That is triple the level compared to this time last year. Police say juveniles are responsible for 38% of those thefts, but only 2/3 end up being turned over to the Department of Juvenile Services. Of that group, only 5% end up serving time at a DJS facility.
If you have a stolen car story or know somebody who's been impacted by the spike in auto thefts, we want to hear about it. Just scan the QR code on your screen. Tell us what happened or send an email to news@foxbaltimore.com.
Making headlines, local leaders are sounding the alarm over a looming state budget crunch. Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsop-Brooks is one of the latest to speak out, saying local governments are being forced to make difficult changes in the coming years.
This year alone, we have a legal mandate to spend an additional $88.4 million on education. That's more, just to kind of give you context, that's more than our entire budget for health and human services.
Well, the funding requirement she's talking about is for the blueprint for Baltimore's future, the statewide education plan local governments are required to pay for, or Kerwin. Well, Prince George's County needs to use rainy day funds now to cover $60 million deficit this year.
The heightened education spending not just putting pressure on Prince George's County. Leaders from Harford County, the state Senate, and Baltimore all agree budgets are being stretched thin, largely because of the Kerwin plan.
We're struggling with Kerwin. I mean, I cannot deal with a $40 million increase in my education budget next year.
I've got counties on the Eastern Shore that have said for the entire time since Kerwin has been passed that they cannot afford it.
It was a gut punch. What we've been discussing with them and what we've heard is an open and willingness to look at how we can look at the formula. It's not what the governor or anyone expected us to be having at this point.
As spending concerns from local governments grow louder, the state is making some major cuts.
State leaders are reportedly preparing to make an 8% cut to all the agencies within the Maryland Department of Transportation. And we are joined now by taxpayer watchdog David Williams. David, thanks so much for being with us today.
Good afternoon. This is a real problem. I mean, we've heard about the Kerwin Commission, we've heard about the structural deficit in Maryland, and now transportation is going to be cut by 8%. And this is a real problem because transportation is a core thing that the state should be funding. And my concern is that they've been spending so much money on projects that probably aren't necessary and are considered vanity projects, that now they're going to have to cut back on highway construction and things that are really necessary and needed for the state and for Baltimore City.
And David, what type of impact could this cut have on everything from, let's say, road maintenance in Maryland to even larger infrastructure projects?
Yeah, it's going to have a massive impact. And, you know, there are a lot of things connected here. And one of them is that you have fuel taxes, the income, the revenue is going down, not because taxes have gone down on fuel taxes, is because you have more electric vehicles and they don't pay the fuel tax. And what's really is kind of a weird dynamic is you have the governor saying that he wants everyone driving an electric vehicle by 2035. well, that means the whole trust fund just bottoms out. I mean, you don't have any fuel taxes at that point. So this is the conundrum that the state is in, is they're trying to get everyone into an EV, but then no one's going to be paying a fuel tax, and it will make the situation even worse.
I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. David, what does the cut tell us about the overall financial health of state government?
Boy, these are massive warning signs that we're seeing, and I think that real tough decisions are going to have to be made. And I look at projects like the Purple Line. I mean, that's at $9.4 billion, and yes, part of it is funded by the federal government, but there is money, state money involved in that. And then just, 7 or 8 months ago, you had the governor talking about the Red Line in Baltimore City. We can't afford it. I mean, that is not something the state can afford. You can't afford it. That's a $3 billion project, assuming there's no cost overruns, it's on time. So there are a lot of issues here, and really they have to get back to basics here. They have to figure out what is needed for transportation, and there are a lot of needs. I mean, people drive around Baltimore City and they feel those potholes and they see the crumbling infrastructure, and they have to figure out a way to do this. And the last thing they should do is raise taxes or raise tolls. I know they want to increase the cost of tolls, but that just hurts, middle income folks that are trying to get from point A to point B.
All right, so David, let's look at it. A reduction in the gas tax, curbing, of course, and other expenses the state has, a reduction in the rainy day fund. What are some things that you think the state can do to kind of compensate for that so Marylanders have the services they need?
Well, you're going to have to cut spending. And as far as Kerwin, I think they should pause that. I think that they should have a pause until they can figure out, what they can do moving forward, because just, scaling back the Kerwin Commission, it doesn't do enough, because it's $4 billion a year more. That's not total. That's more in spending that state and local taxpayers are going to have to be responsible for. And as far as transportation, you can't count on the federal government. We've seen that in Maryland already, is that some of the money is drying up from the federal government. So you have to figure that this is something the state has to do for itself. And again, get back to the core issues of transportation and not some of these vanity projects.
All right. Taxpayer watchdog David Williams, thanks so much for weighing in on this. We appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, fear has become a new reality for some Howard County parents. For months, they've been warning the school system about the safety of students who lost their school bus, and now multiple students have actually been attacked heading to school. Roughly 3,500 students lost their buses after Howard County increased the distance that students have to live from school in order to qualify for bus service. Well, over the last few weeks, 4 Howard County students have reported being victims of crimes, and 3 of those students confirmed to FOX45 News they had a school bus last year. Jada Jones is one of those students. She and her friend were attacked a week ago, and after that incident, Jada's grandmother is calling for the school system to do something.
I need you to tell me that you have transportation for my baby tomorrow so she can go to school and feel safe, so she can have a proper education.
Tonight at 10 o'clock, how the school system is responding to the concerns of those families.
Well, today, the Lyric hosted local students for the matinee performance of Pipeline, a play that explores the issues surrounding the school-to-prison pipeline across the nation. The program was established to make the theater more accessible to young people in Baltimore City and Baltimore County. For thousands of students, this is the first opportunity for them to attend a professional theatrical performance.
I think young people seeing theater is incredibly important. There often aren't many opportunities. And what I love about this particular piece, is that it's about some of the issues that many young people face in their school. Pipeline deals with the school-to-prison pipeline. It has a young protagonist, a young lead. And, I think it's important for students not only to see the classics and historical plays, but to see plays that directly relate to their lives.
This is the program's second year and provides students with a meaningful and thought-provoking experience.
What would an official impeachment inquiry mean for the investigation into the president? The latest escalation the GOP is pushing for in the probe. Pro-Palestinian groups suspended for alleged intimidation are fighting to come back at Columbia University. The battle on college campuses over what differentiates free speech and anti-Semitism.
I'm meteorologist Wyatt Everhart. We see the temperature is still running mild out there, around 50 degrees still in Baltimore. But as we go forward in time, our next weather maker is on the march, when it could mean some wintry showers around Baltimore. That's coming up in just a few.
Making headlines, House Speaker Mike Johnson says he has enough votes to launch a formal impeachment inquiry into President Biden. Now, that would be an escalation of the House GOP's months-long investigation into the president and his family members' business dealings. So far, the GOP has found no evidence the president committed an impeachable offense, but Speaker Johnson says the White House is stonewalling the investigation. The White House has repeatedly denied that claim. The Republican primary field got smaller. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum is officially dropping out. Burgum qualified for and participated in the first two Republican primary debates. However, he failed to get enough support in the polls to qualify for the third debate. The announcement comes as candidates prepare for the fourth primary debate Wednesday night. There's a new push to reinstate two pro-Palestinian groups suspended for threatening rhetoric and intimidation on one college campus. The National Desk, Angela Brown, explains.
Columbia University suspending for the fall semester two groups, Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace, both critical of Israel. The university, releasing this statement, said the student groups organized an unauthorized event that included rhetoric that was threatening and intimidating. Emily Sturge, Campus Reform.
Now these groups can't hold events for the rest of the semester, and they're no longer receiving university funding.
Now supporters of these pro-Palestinian groups are putting pressure on Columbia University, writing this op-ed in the Columbia student newspaper. Columbia University Apartheid Divest is a coalition of student organizations calling for the groups to be reinstated and for the school to divest in Israel, among other things.
I hope Columbia holds firm, and I hope that other universities look at Columbia as an example and understand that this is how universities should be reacting when such violence is occurring on their college campus.
So far, it appears Columbia University has not responded. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
All right, start off with a look at M&T Bank Stadium, and you can see a pretty nice evening out there, dry conditions, and we'll continue to look for quiet weather into the rest of the night around here. Temperatures slowly falling off. We're actually still in the 50s right now, 52 at BWI, quite an improvement from the weekend's weather, not just in terms of dry conditions, but also just more pleasant in terms of temperatures out there. Completely dry, a chance to dry out from all that rain that came in over the weekend. 44 now, Westminster, we've got 54 in the city. 48 Chestertown, Annapolis, state capital, sitting at 50 degrees as well. Bigger picture, relatively quiet here across the state. A couple of isolated flurries out in western Maryland. Actually, a winter weather advisory already popped for Garrett County and Deep Creek Lake because there is a system headed our way. It's not even on the map here on the East Coast yet. I'll show it to you on the big picture in just a second. Closest snow to significant snow to Maryland right now is actually in the northern New England states, and that's moving in the other direction. For the night, we stay clear. We're down through the 40s into the 30s first thing in the morning. You'll need the coat as you step out the door for sure, but I think another chance to get at least very close to 50 degrees tomorrow afternoon. You know, a few fair weather clouds drifting through the night, but we'll stay dry as we go overnight into the morning hours. In fact, I think another bright day, at least early on Tuesday. However, as we push through Tuesday afternoon and evening, that system edging in out of the west, bringing wintry weather to western Maryland, and maybe a burst of wintry type showers early Wednesday morning. That early morning commute could be impacted at least slightly by those showers. You know how it is around here. The slightest bit of winter weather will create problems on the roads. And that's our Clipper system diving south. It looks fairly impressive on the map right now, but just keep in mind these systems don't pack a lot of moisture. So that's the key question. Will it keep enough moisture together as it drags in some colder air overnight Tuesday and the Wednesday? You can see now it's still pretty mild across the mid-Atlantic, but we do bring in the colder air Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday before we push it milder into the weekend again. And that's going to be perfect timing as that system arrives late Tuesday into early Wednesday. Again, just that chance for a few flakes to fly, maybe a little rain mixed with snow. Beyond that, you'll notice the temperatures push back up. We're talking about 50s to near 60 degrees into the weekend. So the pendulum kind of swinging both ways here in December across Maryland. Not exactly unusual. We'll head back your way.
All right, Wyatt, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, the car theft crisis in Maryland and Baltimore under the microscope as another resident is impacted. The latest development surrounding a string of thefts in Reisterstown.
'Tis the season for sneezing. Why experts are especially concerned, however, about pneumonia cases going around. I'm Liz Bonus. We explain why just ahead.
Health officials are sounding an alarm over a spike in clusters of respiratory diseases in kids. Medical reporter Liz Bonus has details.
Hey there, everybody. There are so many illnesses going around with similar symptoms: COVID-19, RSV, the flu. And public health experts want us all to know that any of these common illnesses can lead to pneumonia. The main concern right now is that it's showing up in clusters in children.
Pneumonia is an infection of the lungs.
Dr. Clint Koenig of Ohio's Warren County has the largest outbreak nationwide reported so far. As of today, there are 149 cases reported there in children ages 3 to 14. The average age is 8. Another cluster has been reported in children in Massachusetts, and there are severe outbreaks reported around the world in the Netherlands and in China. Following the pandemic, it is raising alarm that another novel virus is behind the outbreak. The World Health Organization echoing what Dr. Koenig's team says, too.
Part of the message that we're going with is that there's no evidence to suggest this is anything but kind of routine, typical bacteria and nothing out of the ordinary.
As for why this is showing up in clusters and in children,
pneumonia often coincides with several of the other viral infections that we see.
So parents are being asked to call the pediatrician if respiratory symptoms in young people continue to get worse instead of better. Now, quick reminder, there is a pneumonia vaccine recommended for younger children. There's also one for older adults. Just like other vaccines, it can keep you from getting really sick when you get that illness. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus reporting.
All right, I'm Wyatt Everhart. Time to get a final check of that weather. And again, just a nice, mild evening. I hope you're headed out on a Monday night because you got pleasant weather for it. Temperatures still in the 40s and 50s out there. And we're set for not just a clear night, but a clear start to the day on Tuesday. I think just a few high, thin clouds. Through the day Tuesday, we notice western Maryland begins to cloud up, and this is our next weather maker. Now, fortunately, it looks like the last of the leftover moisture from this storm is going to kind of be wrung out in the mountains. But that doesn't mean we can't get a little burst of wintry showers in here early Wednesday morning. So you definitely want to watch Fox 45 morning news that day because it could be interesting. You know, the slightest wintry precipitation on the road creates big time problems. Then the cold shot comes in with that system. It stays chilly around here until Friday. Then we warm things up into Saturday and Sunday. Longer term, you see into early next week, temperatures dropping back into the low 50s. So basically a little something for everyone here in the outlook. Some cold days and some mild days as well.
All right, Wyatt, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, leaders gather in Annapolis to address the juvenile crime crisis. What, if any, solutions can we expect? Chaos at the southern border causes some major closures, the policies being put into question. A string of attempted car thefts in Baltimore County leaves residents on edge.
State lawmakers will gather in Annapolis tomorrow to address the juvenile crime crisis. What we could expect as we see more brazen crimes take place.
Plus, new polling points to an early lead in the race for Maryland senator. How this could shape up heading into the election.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
It means that I don't have a holiday coming. They need to put some cameras up around here or something.
A Reisterstown man is one of the latest victims of attempted car thieves in Baltimore County. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. It's the latest in a massive wave of car thefts impacting communities across the state.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson has details from Reisterstown, where police are investigating if a trio of Hyundais and Kias targeted are connected.
I came home Friday evening, parked my car, went in the house.
It's not the way he wanted to wake up over the weekend.
Saturday morning, like about 5 o'clock in the morning, the police knocked on my door.
This Reisterstown man not showing his face or using his name.
Can't get a break.
But wanting to share his story.
Police say it's probably the kids, you know what I mean? They're the ones that's going around stealing cars.
Along Tarragon Road in Reisterstown, police confirming 2 attempted car thefts over the weekend. A third incident just around the corner on Franklin Road. This man's Kia, one of the cars targeted.
But it was a lot of glass over here. It's still glass over here.
His back window is gone, covered in a black trash bag. Shards of glass littering his back seat. The car's ignition also a mess.
But I was trying to get it, you know what I mean? Because if they get into the wires, I mean, they can probably hot shot it or something.
Then walking us over to see another car parked nearby.
That's a Kia. This is a Hyundai.
This red Hyundai, also with its back window covered in plastic.
See, they did the same thing to this. I didn't see this. But it's just like my wheel was, my steering wheel, theirs is the same way.
According to Baltimore County Police data, there have been at least 4,100 attempted and successful auto thefts so far in 2023, a 190% increase from the year before. This man, now a part of that statistic.
It's just one thing after another, you know.
We asked what this kind of expense means this close to the holidays.
It means that I don't have a holiday coming.
Yet somehow, despite the damage, his ignition still starts.
I can start it, and I can get it where I gotta take it.
But instead of heading off to work today, he's headed to get the car.
Lawmakers to make change.
A revolving door, the same juvenile offenders over and over again.
You can protect the child and also protect society. If we deter that communication, we inhibit our ability to address crime.
If we don't do something to hold these young people accountable, they will continue to run and almost have lawlessness in our cities. And we can't have that.
House Judiciary Committee Chairman Luke Clippinger, a Democrat from Baltimore City, previously telling Fox 45 News he was interested in looking at probation as an area for potential change.
Previous law said that they could be on probation until they're 21. The current law depends on whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony. It basically is up to a year for a misdemeanor and up to 2 years for a felony. I think we might take another look at those.
But so far, no concrete plans from Democratic lawmakers to address the concerns, the same lawmakers who control both chambers in the State House. Meanwhile, Delegate Robin Grammer, a Republican from Baltimore County, sits on the committee. He's been pushing for bigger changes and says the 2 previous committee hearings have been beneficial, but it's time to see action.
People have to, frankly, stop playing so close to the chest and start having real discussions about this issue.
Recent polling from the Gonzalez Research shows voters are looking for a change when it comes to juvenile justice laws.
What we found statewide, 59% of Marylanders say we need a strict
approach. 35% said a more moderate approach.
It's just not clear if or how lawmakers in Annapolis will decide to tackle the problem. The hearing is scheduled to begin 1 o'clock Tuesday afternoon in Annapolis. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you think lawmakers are listening to constituents when it comes to juvenile crime? To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com.
Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. If you feel you're not being heard, you can contact them. We have their numbers and email addresses listed here on your screen. And if you want to connect with more of the elected leaders who represent you where you live, our website makes that easy. Go to foxbaltimore.com, click on the menu on the top left of your screen, and select lawmakers. From there, you can enter your home address to pull up the elected official who represent you in your city, town, and on the state level, and even your members of Congress.
The race for Maryland's open Senate seat heating up over the weekend following a fiery debate between the top two candidates on Sunday. New polling shows Representative David Trone pulling ahead of Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has more on the new numbers for us tonight. Rebecca?
Political analyst John Deedy says primary elections often come down to name recognition, and it looks like the amount of money that David Trone is spending on TV ads is starting to pay off. According to a recent poll that was commissioned by the Trone campaign through Hickman Analytics, which surveyed 1,000 Democratic voters, 86% of those surveys said that they had heard of the name David Trone, while only 73% recognized Angela Alsobrooks. The poll also found 55% of voters have a favorable opinion of Trone compared to 49% for Alsobrooks. And finally, if the election were held today, 41% said that they would vote for Trone, while 35% said they'd vote for Alsobrooks. Today, I spoke with Deedy about these numbers. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I'm surprised by the results because Alsobrooks has a lot of party people behind her. She has the strong party endorsements from a lot of people. But Trone has done the one thing. He has spent money to a point where he has name identification. Alsobrooks needs to do something, and her campaign needs to do something to better get her name out there than have a bunch of endorsements.
The candidates are vying to replace Senator Ben Cardin, who is retiring in early 2025. The primary election is scheduled to take place on May 14th. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Fox 45 News is your headquarters for 2024 election season. As state and local races start to heat up, you can find all of our election coverage online at foxbaltimore.com.
All right, let's get a first check of that forecast. And I have to say, such a nice improvement this Monday versus the weekend. Yeah, I mean, I wish we could have had it over the weekend, but hey, we'll take it on a Monday, right? M&T Bank Stadium got the Christmas colors out. Looks beautiful out there. And I think a lot of us got our holiday decorations up. Maybe not so much in the rain over the weekend, but some folks got out there either first thing this morning or maybe at sunset tonight and got some of the Christmas decor up there. It looks nice. 50 still in the east and 53 still in the city now. Look at the daytime highs today. We're up in the mid and upper 50s. So really a pleasant December Monday. Still crystal clear on the radar. That's good news. We're going to stay dry tonight and tomorrow. Just a few clouds at times. Our next weather maker's on that upper left part of your screen. You see that big red L driving down. That's our low pressure area that could bring a few wintry showers here first thing Wednesday morning. But in the meantime, it's quiet on the range tonight and chilly. Hope you get out and about and enjoy it. And we'll talk much more about that. One chance for some wintry weather this week. It's coming up in just a couple more minutes.
All right, Wyatt, thank you. Still ahead, chaos in Harbor East downtown as shots ring out inside of a movie theater. We press city police for answers as they provide little insight about the incident.
Plus, a new surge at the southern border causing some closures as customs agents become overwhelmed. The critical comments from some Democrats surrounding President Biden's border policies.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
The Maryland Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments in the civil case of Corin Gaines. He's the 5-year-old son of Corin Gaines, who was shot by Baltimore County police in 2016.
That's right. The little boy was also shot when police came to his mother's apartment to serve arrest warrants for her and her fiancé. According to court filings, Cody was injured during that standoff, which ultimately killed his mother.
Well, now there are questions surrounding what's known as qualified immunity in this case. Attorney Thiru Vignarajah joins us live in studio to weigh in. Thiru, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Back in August, the court agreed to take up 2 legal questions. One of those relates to whether Corin Gaines lost the ability to raise an issue in a second appeal. Of course, people raising it on his behalf because he's a child. Officials settled with the family for $3 million, though the jury had originally awarded them $5.4 million. How could that develop going forward?
Yeah, look, this is a very complicated area of law where judges can actually overturn jury verdicts when it comes to how much money is afforded, especially when the lawsuit is against a public official. That's what the Supreme Court has to wrestle with. And one of these matters was settled out of court. It's the other one, the one that has to do with qualified immunity, that is the real centerpiece of the Supreme Court's argument today.
And so the other legal question does have to do with qualified immunity, the concept that protects government officials from liability when completing their duties unless they were violating a right that was established at the time. Do you think it's a valid argument in this case, and how does it affect Cody?
Yeah, look, there's no question that qualified immunity is a doctrine that's out there. It's available for public officials, including police officers, to take advantage of. But let's be clear, this is a doctrine that's not in the Constitution. It was invented by judges, and it makes it harder to hold our public officials accountable. It makes it more difficult for people, individuals, ordinary citizens to bring lawsuits against public officials. And so the Supreme Court really does have an opportunity to take back, or at least hedge in a little bit of this doctrine that right now stands for the principle that public officials have a wide range of things they can do without any liability, even when the law, frankly, should be clear that what they did was wrong.
All right. Little Cody right now is about 12 years old. It was a really, really sad situation all around that we all remember well. Thiru, thanks so much for coming in and talking to us about it. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, time for Check That Forecast, and it's looking good, at least the rest of this evening. Beautiful shot of the Christmas-lit M&T Bank Stadium. Back into action as we go to this Sunday, of course, there, and maybe a little wet by Sunday, by the way, but for now, totally dry. 50, a light west-northwest breeze. We've dried out from all that precipitation, all that mist and fog throughout the weekend. What a better way to start the week. Even right now, we're still hanging on to the 50s in Baltimore itself. Most of the suburbs, though, you're down in the mid and upper 40s right now. Clear on the radar, just a stray snow shower out toward Winchester, Virginia. That is diminished. There is a winter weather advisory up for travels toward Deep Creek Lake and Oakland, far western Maryland. There is a winter weather advisory there for a system coming in that could even bring a few winter showers to Maryland and the Baltimore area. First thing Wednesday. More on that in a second. Right now, you can see the closest snow up in the New England states, up in ski country, and not a concern for us. So as we go through the night, just staying nice and dry and clear. Temperatures do go cold by the morning, down in the upper 30s around here. Then we check the kind of outlook ahead. Things do begin to change early Wednesday mornings. That wintry system edging in, but also weakening right as it arrives. So it'll be interesting first thing Wednesday morning. If you've got early morning travels, you may want to give yourself a little extra time just in case. After that, it's a cold shot, then turning milder in the next weekend. And big picture right now, you do notice we're just in a partly cloudy scenario here across the state. No precipitation anywhere close to Baltimore, that's for sure. And I think we stay nice and dry and clear as we work into the start of our day tomorrow. Just a few fair weather clouds at times. Now, by tomorrow evening, gets more interesting off to the west. This is our Clipper system arriving in the Columbus, Pittsburgh, and even the western edge of Maryland. As it pushes toward Baltimore 95 corridor, boom. It just loses its moisture. So, you know, again, probably not much precipitation with this particular system, but any wintry weather on an early Wednesday morning, you know what that can do to the morning drive. So I'm just advising you of that now. Prepare just in case even flurries can trigger problems on the road. Back to the north and west, there is that Clipper system, again, just coming out of Canadian prairies, and basically this thing not packing a lot of moisture to begin with. So it hits those western Maryland, those West Virginia mountains, kind of a lot of the last moisture in it will be wrung out, if you will. But we're pretty mild here in Maryland, south through Virginia and the Carolinas. That colder air up toward the upper Great Lakes, that's going to be drug in with that system. So look for a colder scenario Wednesday and the Thursday behind that Clipper. And ultimately, that cold shot will hold pretty tough until Thursday. Beyond that, Friday into Saturday, temperatures beginning to rebound back into the mid-upper 50s, even pushing 60, though, with a good chance for rain on Sunday for the Ravens. So we'll be watching that next system closely. But the one chance for some snowflakes to fly again, first thing on Wednesday morning. Back to you.
Quiet things still ahead tonight. New warnings surrounding U.S. funding for Ukraine as the war with Russia continues.
Cities and towns overwhelmed by migrants, with more Democrats joining Republicans calling for big changes at the border. I'm Christine Frizzau on Capitol Hill with what we're learning.
Tonight, the course is growing louder of Washington lawmakers demanding major changes at the border. It comes as big cities with Democratic mayors are experiencing firsthand what border towns have dealt with for years amid a record number of migrants coming to the U.S. National correspondent Christine Frizzau has details.
Coming up. In El Paso, Texas, Border Patrol agents say the city's storm drains are just the latest way criminal organizations are exploiting the system to get migrants into the country illegally.
A lot of children, you know, people will do anything to get through, and the smugglers, they don't care about the life of the person. We've had a couple of people die in there.
Migrants by the thousands also continuing to show up at the border itself and turn themselves in, asking for asylum, though the majority don't qualify under current law. This port of entry in Lukeville, Arizona is now temporarily closed because it saw such a huge increase in migrant activity. The Tucson sector alone seeing about 2,500 migrants per day. In Chicago, hundreds of migrants are now sleeping on the streets in freezing temperatures.
What's it going to take for the Biden administration to wake up and do something about it, to do its job?
More and more Democrats are joining Republicans calling for change, including Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips, a Democrat challenging Joe Biden for president, who described a recent visit to the border.
Old infrastructure that is insufficient, systems and structures that are woefully outdated, lines of trucks waiting to get into the U.S. to bring products made in Mexico to our consumers, lines of human beings sitting in the baking sun.
White House border policy has become a huge vulnerability for President Joe Biden in his run for re-election. An NBC News poll from September shows Republicans hold a 30-point lead when it comes to dealing with border security.
What more can President Biden and the White House do right now?
Well, you know, they need to increase the removals a lot more. You deport, you show repercussions, and you show them going back, because otherwise all you do is see videos of people streaming in, but you don't see people going out. Those images can be powerful.
In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell.
Well, coming up after the break, the destruction in the Middle East continues as an orphanage is flattened. The latest calls for peace as Israel expands its ground operations.
I'm Kayla Gaskins in Washington. Coming up, why traditional advocates for women's rights are coming under fire for their silence.
Multiple calls, 645 President Street. They heard shots in theater number 3. Multiple calls coming in.
Dispatch audio from City Police's Central District around 10 o'clock Saturday night, revealing a slew of 911 calls after gunshots were heard inside Harbury Cinemas.
Yeah, but despite the threat in a very, very public place over the weekend, few details are being shared today by police.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson has more on how police are being tight-lipped about the investigation.
Almost 48 hours later, and no new details from Baltimore police about what exactly happened inside of Harbor East Cinemas on Saturday night. The incident prompted a heavy police response to the movie theater along President Street in the heart of Harbor East. And so far, police only telling us they responded to investigate shots fired inside the movie theater, saying there were no injuries and have no suspect information. But dispatch audio also reveals at least one officer said they were responding to the scene with a rifle. Outside of the theater Saturday night, FOX45 spoke to a woman who said she was inside Harbor East Cinemas seeing the Beyonce movie. And here's how she described the aftermath.
The movie had just ended and the lights came up and security just ran in and said, "There's been a shooting, everyone get out." And we were like, what's going on? What's happening? And so we just started shuffling out as best as we could. And in the lobby, there was security everywhere and kind of just chaos.
And as we do every day, today we asked some pretty basic questions to Baltimore police. Things like, how many shots were fired? How many suspects are you looking for? And will you be releasing any surveillance images? But today a department spokesperson just said there were no investigative updates to share today. And when they do have new information to provide, they'll be putting out a media advisory. In the newsroom, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
If you were at Harbor East Cinemas Saturday night and witnessed this incident, we want to hear from you. You can contact us by email at news@foxbaltimore.com.
Local leaders across the state are sounding the alarm over a looming budget crunch. Leaders from Prince George's County, Harford County, the state Senate, and Baltimore all say budgets are being stretched thin, largely because of the Corin education plan. Well, now, as those spending concerns grow louder, the state is making some major cuts, including an 8% cut to all the agencies within the Maryland Department of Transportation. In the last hour, we spoke to David Williams with the Taxpayers Protection Alliance about the impacts these cuts could have.
This is a real problem because transportation is a core thing that the state should be funding. And my concern is that they've been spending so much money on projects that probably aren't necessary and are considered vanity projects, that now they're going to have to cut back on highway construction and things that are really necessary and needed for the state and for Baltimore City.
Williams went on to say that this is a massive warning sign when it comes to the overall state budget because of other big projects, including the Red Line in Baltimore City.
Taking you live to Washington, D.C., where police say people are being robbed at gunpoint for their expensive coats. They are now recommending one thing that could help you. Caroline Patricus with our Sinclair sister station explains.
And over the last few days, 5 people were robbed at gunpoint for their coats and their belongings here in the district. And as the shopping season gets underway, D.C. police are warning residents about the uptick in carjackings. They say remove your keys and lock the car doors. They also say lock your doors immediately before even putting the key in the ignition, and do not keep valuable items inside your vehicle. If someone does try to carjack you, don't resist or argue. Give up your property and call police. Now, one commander in the 5th District with MPD is recommending Apple AirTags to put inside your vehicle and your coats.
If you are a DC resident in one of those 2 PSAs, please bring your vehicle, bring your registration, and bring your ID to get an AirTag. But AirTags are awesome. I've seen people use them on toolkits, suitcases. I think that's probably the best thing you can do as far as if it gets taken.
There have been 919 carjackings in the district so far this year, with 77% of those involving a gun. We asked MPD whether or not they plan to increase police patrols in these heavy shopping areas, but so far we have not heard back. Reporting in Georgetown, Caroline Patricus, Fox 45 News.
Happening in Baltimore today, the Lyric hosted local students for the matinee performance of Pipeline. It's a play that explores the issues surrounding what's known as the school-to-prison pipeline across the country. That program was established to make the theater more accessible to the young people in Baltimore City and Baltimore County. For thousands of students, this is the first opportunity for them to attend a professional theatrical performance.
I think young people seeing theater is incredibly important. There often aren't many opportunities. And what I love about this particular piece, is that it's about some of the issues that many young people face in their school. Pipeline deals with the school to prison pipeline. It has a young protagonist, a young lead. And, I think it's important for students not only to see the classics and historical plays, but to see plays that directly relate to their lives.
Well, this is the program's second year.
Mayor Brandon Scott and city council members attended a ceremony to celebrate the passing of a new city council bill. It will require 100% of all vehicles in the city's administrative fleet to be zero emission by the end of 2030. Mayor Scott hopes the passing of the bill will help establish Baltimore City as a leader and climate conscious and sustainable government.
By requiring 100% purchases, leases, and rentals for our administrative fleet are emission-free, every city-operated light-duty sedan, pickup truck, and SUV will help us achieve our climate goals while doing their daily work of serving the residents of Baltimore.
The city also updated and added new charging stations at the central garage.
Well, a fear has become reality for some Howard County parents. For months, they've been warning the school system about the safety of students who lost their school bus, and now multiple students have been attacked.
That's right. Roughly 3,500 students lost their buses after Howard County increased the distance students must live from school in order to qualify for bus service. Over the last few weeks, 4 Howard County students have reported being victims of crimes, and 3 of those students confirmed to FOX45 News they had a school bus last year. Jada Jones and her friend were attacked a week ago. And after the traumatic incident, Jada's grandmother now calling for the school system to do something.
I need you to tell me that you have transportation for my baby tomorrow so she can go to school and feel safe, so she can have a proper education.
Tonight at 10, how the school system is responding to the concerns of these families. In election 2024 news, the Republican presidential primary field is shrinking as it heads into the 4th GOP debate this week in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
That's right. The current frontrunner, former President Trump, is skipping again to attend a private fundraiser instead. The stage will include former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie hasn't yet qualified for this one, falling short of the 6% polling threshold.
Well, another Republican presidential hopeful has exited the race. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum has suspended his campaign. Burgum struggled to catch on with voters in polling and in fundraising. He did not qualify for Wednesday night's primary debate either. He blasted the Republican National Committee's requirements for making the stage.
A Palestinian orphanage in Gaza is destroyed by an Israeli airstrike.
A devastating scene in central Gaza this morning after an IDF missile struck the Palestinian orphan's home. The bombing severely damaged the building, leaving gaping holes in the facade and mounds of concrete and debris scattered around their area. There is no official death toll, but local officials say a nearby hospital received 32 bodies overnight and into the morning.
Israel is expanding its war in Gaza, warning that its ground operations against Hamas now extend to all parts of the densely populated Strip. It's intensifying the bombardment of Khan Yunis today, the main city in southern Gaza. Well, people there are being urged to evacuate, but those on the ground say there's virtually nowhere safe to go. Most of Gaza's 2.3 million people have now been displaced from their homes, and with food and water and medicine scarce, aid groups are warning disease could become even bigger killer than bombs.
And as the fighting continues, some of the loudest voices on women's rights are silent when it comes to the claims of injustices suffered by Israeli women on October 7th.
National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has details.
New reports chronicle the horrific violence inflicted by Hamas on October 7th. Specifically, violence on women. Trauma consistent with rape and sexual assault. The Sunday Times publishing a collection of first-hand accounts. One man at the music festival recalled, "I saw this beautiful woman with the face of an angel and 8 or 10 of the fighters beating and raping her. When they finished, they were laughing, and the last one shot her in the head." CNN's Dana Bash pressing progressive Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal on the far left's silence.
We cannot say that one war crime deserves another.
With respect, I was just asking about the women, and you turned it back to Israel. I'm asking you about Hamas. In fact,
I already answered your question, Dana. I said it's horrific, and I think that rape is horrific, sexual assault is horrific. However, I think we have to be balanced about bringing in the outrages against Palestinians.
Critics slamming UN women for taking 57 days to recognize the female victims of October 7th.
Israeli women are the subject of a collective international denial.
Prominent American-Israeli actress Gal Gadot urging all those who have done so much for women's rights globally to please join the demand that Hamas release every single woman hostage immediately. Israel's Minister of Women's Advancement said she reached out to Michelle Obama, asking her to condemn Hamas's sexual violence. That request, reportedly, was met with silence. Critics argue they want to see concrete evidence the alleged rapes actually occurred. Israeli officials say roughly 17 women and children are still being held hostage by Hamas. The White House backing up this claim as they work to secure their release. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Well, greetings from Jerusalem. Santa take on a deeper meaning this year. A man dressed as St. Nick rode a camel through the Old City, talking about peace as a nearly 2-month war between Israel and Hamas continues.
The more important message to send from the heart of the world, Jerusalem, is the message of peace and hope from the Holy Land to the world, and wish this war will finish to live in happiness. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from the Holy Land! Ho, ho, ho!
Christmas celebrations in the region are expected to be subdued this year. Medical officials say more than 15,000 people have been killed since Israel launched its assault on the retaliation for the October 7th attack.
And turning now to the war in Ukraine, funding for Ukraine will be gone by the end of the year. That is what the White House's budget chief warned in a letter today to members of Congress. In the letter, she says after that time, there is, quote, no magical pot of funding available. To get GOP lawmakers to buy in, another agreement for aid might need to include some border policy changes, namely to the asylum process.
How to manage that, how to manage the flow that the cartels are essentially sending to us, I think is something that's worth working on. I don't like to see it tied to Ukraine aid, however, but if that's what the Republicans are insisting upon, then we've got to make a good faith effort to try to find something that everybody can live with.
Whichever way it happens, the White House is hoping Congress can push the president's $106 billion aid package through before a lack of aid impacts Ukraine's efforts against Russian forces.
And for over 40 years, they've celebrated Christmas at Ladue. We'll tell you all about it coming up.
It can be a time for celebration. It can also be a time of difficulty for those dealing with mental illness. What you can be on the lookout for to ensure your loved ones have a safe and mentally healthy holiday season.
And we had a nice Monday around here. Clear skies, temps in the 50s, and I think we're set for another good-looking Tuesday as radar remains clear for now. However, we are tracking our next weather maker, Clipper system diving south. We'll talk about the impact that could have for at least parts of Maryland come overnight Tuesday into early Wednesday morning. That's straight ahead.